All right, everybody, welcome to episode 51 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Good. We're getting down to the nitty gritty for fantasy football for this year. I think we all pretty much know where our teams are, or we'll know very soon. So this is my favorite time of the year for fantasy football until we get into the off season, of course.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think this is the time of year where people have made their decision on whether they're contenders or pretenders, and you see a lot more trades coming into your inbox. You see a lot more trades getting made around your leagues, and that's the thing about Dynasty. That's what makes it so much fun. Is like it's not it's not just like, all right, well, I'm out of it. I'm not paying attention anymore, or I'm in it, but I can't get a hold of anyone who is out of it to try to maybe bolster my odds of winning the thing. So, yeah, I love this time of year, And listen, I'm, Bill, you probably are in the same boat. It's not all contenders in my world, I've already started some of the rebuild process, trading for picks, trading for youth, and but those contenders, man, you do look at those contenders and go, whew, well, what can be if you win that championship and lord it over your friends and have a little bit of extra Christmas money, and. But yeah. So look, we're talking about fantasy, obviously. So let's get into the news and let's see what happened with these games this week. So first game, the Thursday night classic, Giants Eagles. We saw a lot of things that we thought we'd never see. Daniel Jones running for 80 yards and then getting according to Twitter, he got hit by a sniper. He got hit by an RKO. He got hit by a Stone Cold Stunner. I think I saw him get hit by everything in all the memes and gifs that were out there, which were all pretty hilarious. But my big takeaway was Carson Wentz. He had a game. 359 passing yards and 3 total touchdowns, 2 in the air and 1 on the ground. Bill, what did you take away from this game?
Not a whole lot. I think that that's just kind of two bad teams. Sorry, Rocky Petrella, but it is, and it's just a bad defense. And I mean, Wentz is good enough to be able to do something against them. Fulgham looks pretty decent, his body control and making catches is pretty impressive, but overall, it was just two bad teams, in my opinion.
We talked about Carson Wentz doing it in a bad game, or excuse me, against a bad team this week. We'll come to it in a little bit. His matchup this week ain't too bad either. So
I was flipping through Twitter just before we started, and I saw a listing of the quarterbacks and like the top quarterbacks and their amount of points based off of rushing. And Wentz was like, I want to say 5th. He getting like almost 7 points a game just off of his legs. So
wow.
That's pretty impressive, in regards to that. So if he can keep that up, he's silently doing okay, like point wise, but there's still a lot of concerns with, his actual play.
Yeah, and I think he had like a 2 or 3 week stretch there where it just looked bad. There were a lot of INTs, a lot of just poor play overall, not hitting guys, low completion percentage. But if you start looking at what he's done in the last 2 weeks or so, you kind of see that he's doing a lot, especially with the very little he has on the offensive line and in the receiving corps. So hopefully he keeps this going. And as some of these guys come back, looks like Jalen Reagor is going to come back this week. So that's going to be a boost considering they lost Deshaun Jackson after they got him. So, keep your eyes on him, and you have to kind of adjust with the times. 2 weeks ago, Carson Wentz was a laughing stock, but you got to kind of look at what he's done in the last couple of weeks and realize that hopefully he's on the ascent. And we'll talk about this in a little bit again, but his matchup this week ain't too bad. So we'll move on, though, to the Lions and the Falcons. Dude, Kenny G, just looking smooth. Guy goes for over 100 yards, no touchdowns, but, you know, the come from behind win, I guess you would say, for the Lions. Todd Gurley messes the whole thing up by scoring a touchdown. That not a sentence you hear too many times, but may have been the first time I've seen in all my time watching football when the opposing team was throwing up their hands in the air, signaling a touchdown after it was scored. So, but yeah, my big takeaway is Kenny G is looking good. It's not surprising, but it's good to see after spending all those weeks out injured that he's coming back, and he's coming back with a fury. What did you see, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, that was a good sign for the Lions. Galladay looks the part. I mean, he looks like he's actually gotten better, you know, compared to last year. I mean, he's making some really difficult catches, and you know, I mean, yeah, that big thing that was kind of a brain fart. It was a really weird play when Gurley kind of fell into the end zone because like one of the Lions almost tackled him, and then he realized he wasn't supposed to, and I think that kind of threw Gurley off, and then he just kind of lost balance and tipped in there. So yeah, it was kind of like he should have just went down when he was getting tackled, but you know, it was just such a weird, you know, it's counterintuitive to like how the guys play the rest of the game. So, you know, it's just a mistake. And still the defense had to let the Lions drive all the way down the field and score a touchdown with 0 seconds left. So I wouldn't be too hard on him. I mean, I know you're not, but yeah, I mean, basically Atlanta out-Lions the Lions.
And it's crazy because there's just those years every year, and we see it with our own teams and we see it with other teams that no matter what they do to get themselves a lead, they find new and innovative ways to lose games. I mean, Atlanta lost that game against Dallas on the onside kick that no one wanted to recover. You know, this game where, you know, Todd Gurley, and there's actually, I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, there's actually a clip of the play before Todd Gurley scores where they're all huddled up on the sideline and Matt Ryan says, "Hey, we need a first down, but no touchdown." And he's saying that to everyone in the huddle. So it was kind of, Matt Ryan knew what the situation was, and he expressed to everyone like, "Hey, we just need this first down. We're not trying to score here." And, you know, like you said, maybe Todd Gurley was a little off balance. He kind of actually did a little David Jones where like he was trying to go down and he didn't quite get down. He crossed the plane, and, you know, it was crazy. And then I think, and Bill, you were watching this game, so you can correct me if I was wrong, but on the play for the game-winning touchdown, Stafford to Hawkinson, didn't Atlanta have a penalty to give them to give the Lions an untimed down for that touchdown pass? Am I correct on that? No.
There was a few seconds left when there's 3
Okay.
seconds left or something like that.
So I'm probably getting that confused with another game. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The Lions had to go the length of the field and score a touchdown. So it's not like, you know, the defense could have prevented that if the defense was any good. But all right, Browns Bengals. I just wrote Baker. 297 and 5 touchdowns. And it's funny, Bill, because I know you are as well. We're in tons of chats with different people, and, you know, during the games, all the chats are going wild. And I'm in one chat, and someone is just slamming, you know, Baker at the beginning of that game. I know I think it was in our DAP chat, we're slamming Baker in the beginning of that game. And
I still believe he is a bad quarterback. So him tearing through one of the worst defenses in the NFL doesn't do anything for me.
And listen, I'm with you because I'm in Trade Addicts too, and Russ and I have been trying to work out a deal. I am rebuilding. I have Travis Fulgham on my team, and Russ had expressed some interest. So he sent me a deal today. Russell Wilson and Travis Fulgham for Baker, Odell, and a second. And I countered him with Travis Fulgham for a second. And he rejected that. But in my reply to him, I said, dude, I have no interest in Baker or Odell. So, I mean, even the 5 touchdown game didn't, and I've been wanting Baker to be a thing. And I think it's mostly because after his rookie year, he looked so good in such a bad situation. I thought that maybe he had it. And I kind of secretly pull for the Browns because I mean, I don't think there's a fan base out there that's had it worse than them. So I kind of want them to get on the right track. But ever since that rookie year, Baker has not done it, and I don't think he will. And I think in a year or two, the Browns are going to be moving on, whether they draft somebody or find somebody in free agency or whatever the case may be, because they do have a really good team. They bolstered that offensive line. They got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They have weapons in the passing game. So, but that's enough of me rambling. Did you see anything in this game besides the fact that Baker still isn't good?
Harrison Bryant is a perfect fit because he's a tight end and probably only goes 8 yards out. So that was a perfect about distance for Baker to be able to throw to him. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I know Baker. I heard Baker made a lot of good throws in that game, and I mean, he's obviously an NFL quarterback, but he's just not a good one. And like that's kind of where I'm at with him. But yeah, Harrison Bryant, man, he's getting some usage. I mean, I understand that Hooper was out, but they went to him more than they went with Njoku. So he obviously is that number 2 tight end, and they do a fair amount of 2 tight end, sets. So being a rookie and getting some play, that's a good sign for him.
Yeah, and we were on Dynasty Theory in the off season. And this was a guy we talked about, and this is a guy you and I disagreed on. You were much higher on him than I was, and it looks like he's fitting into that role. So obviously, once Austin Hooper comes back, we have to see what he looks like. But for a game where David Njoku was available, and David Njoku had a good week 1 before he got hurt, so it's not like David Njoku, didn't at least have some good work to put in front of this coaching staff. But obviously Harrison Bryant has been doing it in practice, so we'll see what happens when Hooper comes back. But he looked good in this game. Steelers Titans, dude, Deontay is a stud. Like, it's so weird. The whole Juju thing is weird. I don't even know how to value him anymore. Chase Claypool looked like he was becoming Mapletron. But man, when Deontay's out there, Deontay is the man. He is that dude. He is wide receiver 1 on the Steelers. And he goes off 9 receptions, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, and traded for him in a rebuild. So I'm kind of happy to see him. The only thing that worries me is that health, because he did end up leaving this game. So, Bill, what did you pull from this game?
Yeah, I think it was interesting how little Claypool got used. I think he had 1 target maybe or at least 1 catch for -2 yards or something I don't remember. Maybe it was even a run. I have no idea. 1 run for 2 yards. I don't know. But it was very little usage. And, I think that's just a blip. He's a rookie. There's going to be those ups and downs for him, especially when there's more, when the full wide receiver core is available. So I think that if he has another rough game or two, I'm going to start making offers for him because I think he's already shown that he has the ability. And I mean, he's not going to get worse, right? It's not like he got worse all of a sudden. So as time progresses in Dynasty, I am more than happy to have him on as many rosters as I can get. So, I'm kind of rooting for him to not get much volume over the next few weeks, just so I can make some offers.
Yeah, and you were right on the nose. 1 reception, -2 yards, 1 target. So But we also have to realize that Juju also went off in this game, 9 for 80, no touchdowns. But you know, uh, both of their kind of top guys were healthy, available, and targeted by Big Ben. So I think in those situations, Chase Claypool is going to kind of get left out in the cold. There's only so many balls to go around. So let's see, what do we got next? Panthers, Saints. Dude, Alvin Kamara, 22 touches, total touches, 148 yards. He's just so damn good, man. Like, it's crazy the wealth at the top end of that running back position in fantasy. I mean, CMC is a stud, but he's been hurt. Saquon is a stud, but he's been hurt. Zeke was a stud, but with the offensive line falling apart and now on second and third string quarterbacks, I mean, obviously it's a lot easier to key in on them and take them out. Dalvin Cook, great player, hurt it. And then you just got Alvin Kamara, and it's crazy how he was the fourth, fifth, sixth running back off the board, and he's just been that dude. Anything you got from this game, Bill?
I mean, the Carolina is actually a lot better than I think and anybody expected, especially their defense. So I mean, this was kind of not the best week to say that, but I mean, it's as a whole, like just looking at their body of work so far. I mean, everybody expected their defense to be like a JV defense, and they're at least looking competent. And so, and I think I'd heard on a podcast either today or yesterday about how they're one of the harder, or they keep like the expected points or the average points for a quarterback. It's like 6 points less than what they average against all other teams. So I don't know if it's just they're running against that defense or what, but quarterbacks aren't scoring very well against that defense as a whole. And they're actually a decent team, and I hate how Carolina keeps end up being okay, even though everybody expects them to be bad. Like, why can't the Lions be better?
And I think it starts at the top. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, because I can say the same thing and much more about my Dallas Cowboys, but it starts at the top. The Panthers went out. They got Matt Rule. They didn't let that guy leave the building without signing a contract, which is key, because I want to say the Jets maybe had him in and they let him leave. I know one team had him in and let him leave. And no, it couldn't have been the Jets because they had Gase. I'm blanking on the team now. But the Panthers didn't do that. They identified their guy and they signed him. And they are like the first team in history to use every single one of their draft picks on defense. So obviously, Matt Rule and the GM in Carolina said, "Man, our defense is terrible. We should use all of our draft picks to make the defense better." And then they went out and they plucked a low-cost free agent like Robbie Anderson, who has turned into their wide receiver 1, 1A, 1B, however you want to describe him, to complement DJ Moore. And Mike Davis, I mean, I don't believe he was on the team last year. So he was?
Yeah.
He was. But obviously, Matt Rule and Joe Brady have figured out a way to turn him into a CMC light, for his time in the sun. So, I mean, I think it starts at the top. It starts with finding that coach. And, I mean, Bill, I think you can agree Matt Patricia isn't that coach. And so far, Mr. McCarthy in Dallas is not that coach either. So, we'll see if Dallas can turn it around in the coaching department. Lions have won a couple games, so hey, maybe Matt Patricia is the coach. Who knows? But Bill nodding his head no on that one. So on that note, we'll go to Bills Jets. Allen goes for over 300 yards. Cole Beasley goes over 100 yards. And the Bills don't score a single touchdown. I think that's got to be some kind of like weird random stat. Like, how many times has that been done before where the QB throws for over 300, a wide receiver gets over 100, and they score 0 touchdowns? But yeah, that was my takeaway. What about you, Bill?
I really don't. I didn't pay attention to that game a whole lot. I mean, it's just an outmatched team against a team that probably was just going through the motions. You know what I mean? Like, they probably didn't. Their focus was not on the Jets. I will say that right now. The Bills were looking forward to whoever they're playing this week, because I gotta imagine the Jets are getting the worst effort against every team, because they look like a they look like a I don't know, JV team, and so it's too bad. But yeah, I mean, it was just an outmatched team, but it was interesting because I think the Jets took a early lead in that game, and then of course, the coaching prohibited them from scoring any more than they already did.
And it's funny. I just thought of this while you were talking. The Jets are that team in fantasy, or that team in your dynasty league, that they understand they have to rebuild, but they just trade all of their good players for draft picks. And you're kind of looking at it like, well, you could have gotten maybe you could have gotten Deontay Johnson in that trade, or maybe you could have got Chase Claypool in that trade, or maybe you could have, gotten, I'll use a Jet, Sam Darnold thrown into that trade. And you see them and they have all these picks, and then they're going to pick a bunch of rookies. And then next year they're going to trade, a guy that they had in the first for a second round pick because that guy didn't pan out year one. And just that never ending cycle of trading players for picks and trading players for picks. And we're right around the corner. And then it's like, oh, we got to trade these, so. And our boy Drew, they have the Pats this week, the Bills Pats. So he's saying 6-2, here we come. And you might be right, because the Patriots are they're not looking that great either. So, but we'll see. Maybe Josh Allen was trying to figure out if he can outdress Cam Newton this week. So our next one here is the Cowboys versus the Washington football team. My biggest takeaway was Gibson feasts on a very bad Dallas Cowboys team. Don't know if you had any takeaways from that as well, Bill.
I mean, they are pretty much. I mean, I didn't see much of that game either, because I was watching most of the Lions game, and so I didn't have Red Zone going, so it was just the Lions was my focus for those early games. But yeah, it's pretty bad when you're losing to a Kyle Allen led team by over 20 points. And I mean, I get it. Like, you're playing without your starting quarterback and your line's a little beat up, but at the same time, there's a lot of teams that have quarterbacks that are at the level of Andy Dalton and lines that are worse than Dallas. So it's a concern, like, that there's the coaching or something is not right. And I mean, I understand the defense is bad. So it's they're in it bad. I almost think that they just start tanking. But the crazy thing is they're only a half game out of first, so it's like this. You can't feel good about your team, but at the same time, you might end up making the playoffs by being like a 6-10 team. It's just insane to me.
Okay. Couple things there. First of all, I don't know if there are too many teams in the league that have an offensive line that's worse than the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
It's bad. I mean, there are third stringers in a couple of spots. I think actually in 3 spots. A couple of backups there, and the defense is god awful. Just god awful. And we'll see. We'll see if it's Ben DiNucci or Andy Dalton starting this week, but yeah, they Andy Dalton. I was watching that game. I watched the whole game, and Andy Dalton at one point was really fired up on the sideline, like getting in people's faces and like trying to get people going. So I think he cares. I just don't know if anyone else does. And I mean, the offensive line might care and just don't have the talent to do anything about it. I mean, unfortunately, when you're playing third stringers against, the defensive line for Washington, which is actually their best unit, I mean, that's going to be bad. But man, that defense, and they also don't coach that defense into schemes that might try to hide some of their deficiencies. So it's just bad all around. I agree with you. They should be tanking. And here's my public service announcement for last week. People, stop trying to get quarterbacks traded to the Cowboys. Ryan Fitzpatrick's not going to do anything for you. He's going to end up getting killed. Like, so I even saw someone said they should try to trade for Matt Stafford, and I'm like, first of all, it's never going to happen. But second of all, like, I love Matt Stafford. He's one of my favorite QBs, but that offensive line is so bad right now. Like, I just don't want to get another quarterback killed. I mean, Andy Dalton got hurt. That wasn't an offensive line fault. That was just a dirty hit on Andy Dalton. But, God, let's not get anyone else hurt. We'll just play Ben DiNucci. And it's crazy because winning that division could actually lose you like 10 spots in the draft. It's almost not worth it for either the Cowboys or the Eagles to try to win that division because, I mean, get the high pick, get all your guys healthy, and try to come back in 2021 and really, field a good team. But that's just my opinion. So Packers, Texans. So A-Rod, not good last week. This week, 283 and 4 tutties. What was your takeaway, Bill?
He loves Davante Adams, and that was kind of what we expected going into the season, and nothing's changed. They're peppering him with targets, and Houston's just not a good team. You're just hoping that Watson, shows magic enough for them to win, but it's never going to happen because the team just isn't the defense isn't good enough. And so anytime you're playing a team that has any sort of efficiency, that team is just going to be destroyed. And that's just kind of what happened. So, Green Bay's looking like a good team. I mean, they got manhandled by Tampa, a couple weeks ago, but
yeah.
I mean, not many teams can put the pressure, on a quarterback like they did. So I think that Green Bay is going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, and it's funny. We always talk about, Green Bay needs a second receiver. That's what everyone always says. Oh, man, if they only had a receiver to line up next to Davante Adams. And Bill, I'll plug you a little bit. You were on the Dynasty Hot Sauce podcast with our man Larry Monkey and Run DFF, and you brought up Allen Lazard for a quick minute. And the funny thing is that if you have the real number 2 wide receiver for Green Bay should be a healthy Davante Adams. Like, if he's healthy, he's just so damn good. You almost don't need a number 2. Where they run into issues, obviously, is when he gets hurt and when he's injured and he's not playing. So it's kind of like almost the wide receiver 2 should just be like a doctor that keeps Davante Adams healthy, and then he can just go out there and ball out. So here we go. The team that the Packers lost to last week, Bucks Raiders. Woo! Brady bunches the yards with 396 and the touchdowns with 4 of them. And they're going to get AB this week, which, I mean, I know a lot of people have differing opinions on, but he's just another guy to throw out there with Godwin. And, well, Godwin's hurt, but Godwin's, Evans, Scotty Miller, AB, Gronk, Fournette, Rojo. I mean, can anybody stop him?
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty incredible when you just look at the roster. I am a little worried about of all of those players. I mean, I'm probably most worried about Mike Evans. I mean, it seems like his usage has just plummeted, and it almost feels Des Bryant like a little bit. Like, and we were actually talking about this on the pod I was on last night, where they're very similar age when Des kind of took a drop in production, and sometimes if you're not a great route runner, and I don't know if Mike Evans has ever been considered a good route runner. He usually just dominates physically because he can do the post up and out jump people, and he's got strong hands and all of that. And that's kind of how Des played. And that's my concern that, Mike Evans might be losing a little bit. He just, you get a little bit older, you get beaten up a little bit, and you have all this other talent that gets open, and you have a quarterback who's much more knowledgeable of where to put the ball, not just chuck it up for a 50-50 when he can, throw it to a guy who's wide open. And that's the challenge here, right? You have a discriminating quarterback, like, so that's my biggest concern about Mike Evans. And like, I've had a lot of talks with people in my leagues, and, whether it's somebody offering me Mike Evans or me trying to move Mike Evans, and his value is just plummeted. And, he's essentially being used as a tight end down by the goal line, and that's pretty much it. He's a guy that, but now with Gronk starting to become Gronk again, I mean, how much does that hurt Evans even more? And so, like, what's even the value of Evans now? And that's my biggest thought of on either of these teams is just what do you do with Mike Evans? He could almost go from, a wide receiver 1 to, a wide receiver 4, if things keep going the way they are.
Yeah, and I'm wondering because obviously they've been talking about Mike Evans with some kind of a leg or foot injury, something like that. And I'm hoping that it is more of the fact that he's trying to play through this, and that's what's hampering him. But
Right.
I mean, what you're saying about kind of the Des Bryant trajectory could also be true, which is a shame because Mike Evans has always been a dude that I liked in fantasy, a guy who I thought was always kind of underrated a little bit, even though he put up great stats. I have him in one league, and honestly, I haven't even thought about shopping him because I know the value just isn't going to be there. It's almost not worth the time to try to convince somebody to give me a first for him because I don't believe anybody in their right mind would. So
You just got to weather it. Yeah.
Yeah, hope he bounces back. Maybe it is injury related. He gets, a week. Unfortunately, they have one of the late buys this year. They have that week 13 buy. So it's kind of one of those things where, um, you won't have him the first week of your playoff run. So hopefully he gets that rest and then you weather the storm the first week if you don't have a buy or something like that. He gets rested up and then he comes out on fire and kind of leads you to a fantasy championship. And maybe you can try to tell somebody that. I mean, I don't think they would buy it, but at this point, I think he's a hold more than anything else, unless, you really just want to get rid of him and you're willing to take whatever somebody's offering.
Yeah.
So we're going here. Chiefs Broncos. There weren't any real standouts in this game. Like the Chiefs put up 43 points, and it's like you kind of wonder how they did it because like there's not one player or two players that you go, oh, these are the guys that had a big game, So I don't know if you pulled anything out of that game as well.
Yeah, I mean their defense. I think this is like a slight concern with Mahomes. Like I'm happy. Like I'm happy having Mahomes on all of my teams if I can, but their defense is getting better, and that's going to make the need for the offense to be as prolific, less. So I think we've seen this year where, he's not having those monster games right now, and it's a little worrisome, because their defense is getting better. He's just not having to and teams are making it more difficult for him to pass downfield. They're just having him dink and dunk. So it's they're just not able to get as many plays off throughout the game, and so that's my biggest concern with them. And they have so many weapons now; it's just like they're spreading it out, and you don't know who's going to hit each week. It seemed like who was the best receiver this week? I think it might have been Mecole Hardman, and like he started out really well. I think Tyreek ended up doing okay, but Kelsey didn't do much, and they ran the ball really well, but now it's going to be split between two running backs. So it's like, who's the? They are almost becoming so diverse. It's going to be tough unless you are really good at picking matchups for a certain week. Denver, man, like they struggled, but what's crazy to me is of all of the quote unquote weapons they have, it seems like Locke is just locked on to Albert O. Like Albert O had like 10 targets, and it's just like, wait a minute, you have Fant here, you have Judy here, you have all these guys, and then you're just locking on him and launching the ball to him, and he looks pretty solid. But I mean, at some point you're going to have to start spreading it around a little bit more, and but yeah, we'll see what happens with them. I still will give Locke a little bit more. A few more weeks before I completely start trashing them.
Yeah, so back to the point you made earlier about the best receiver for Kansas City this week. You were correct. It was Mecole Hardman, 2 receptions for 57 yards. That's the top receiver for a team that scored 43 points this week.
Yeah.
And then you were right about Tyreek as well. He went 6 for 55 and a touchdown. The third best receiver, it's a guy we talk about all the time. Nick Keizer, the backup tight end, 2 for 36.
Yeah, he had a fumble too, I think.
That's such a 2020 thing to like Nick
Damn
Keizer.
you, Nick.
Nick Keizer. Okay, whatever. But yeah, it is interesting that Drew Lock and Albert O have this mind meld thing going where Drew Lock only throws to him. Maybe Albert O want to bet or, has text messages or something. I don't know, but it has been very, I'll say, interesting that has been the combination since Drew Lock has gone back. So 49ers Patriots. My name is Jeff. Goes for 112 and 3 touchdowns. And then he heads right to the IR, like every other 49ers running back does at one point or another. So what were your takeaways?
Yeah, it's tough. I wonder what's going on with McKinnon. Like, that was my first thought is like, I know they said they were going to rest him, that they used him too much in the previous games and that sort of thing. But to then use him not at all this game, it just seemed really weird to me. So my concern is, what do we do with him next week? If it's just him and JaMycal Hasty, like what's going on? You almost hope that for their sake, Tevin Coleman comes back. So I think he would be the obvious person to kind of take over. But didn't Debo get hurt also? So Ayuk looks like he's going to be a good play coming up. Of course, Kittle, obviously. But yeah, it was. I mean, they looked pretty decent in that game. So, but the Patriots just looked awful. Cam looks really bad. He's, he just, I'm hoping it's just rust and that, he's going to get back some timing, but he has no weapons. And that's the challenge. Like, if I put a gun to your head and said, tell me what their number 2 weapon is on that offense or wide receiver weapon, I don't think you could even tell me who that would be with any sort of confidence. I mean, Edelman's the one probably, but he's not doing well either. So it's, I mean, probably James White is the number 2 weapon on that offense, and that's not good.
And I don't even think he got much burn in this game.
No, he didn't. No.
And that's the crazy part. We're talking about who the number 2 option might be. and we're talking about a guy that was practically invisible in this game. So,
Yeah, they look really bad.
I mean, 1 reception for 3 yards for James White. I mean,
Yep.
that's what we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, like, let me just read the names off for people who got receptions in this game: Jacoby Myers, Demir Bird,
Hmm.
Ryan Izzo, Dalton Keene, Jacob Johnson.
I don't even know who Jacob Johnson is. The
Right.
other ones, at least I can say I know who they are, but
Right,
yeah,
and none of them inspire confidence. And
no,
yes, there are other guys in there.
yeah,
Rex Burkhead had 3 receptions. Julian
yeah.
Edelman had 1 reception. N'Keal Harry,
He's
R.I.P.
what's
R.I.P.
happening?
Like, I mean, it's the Halloween season. That dude's literally a ghost. You don't see him ever, and then every once in a while he bumps into something, and oh yeah, he bumped into the ball. I remember he's around now, and that's what N'Keal Harry is. Right. It's a shame. Thought the guy could have been decent, and it doesn't look like it's working out for him so far. Jags Chargers. Justin Herbert slays the Jags. 347 with 3 touchdowns. And I mean, we talked about all these guys during the offseason, and I said, in Superflex, I think that Justin Herbert should be the 103. And a lot of people did not agree with that. I mean, maybe he should have been the 102. Who knows? I mean, we're going to see Tua in action this week and probably for the rest of the year, barring injury or just terrible play. But man, Justin Herbert is just he's YOLO, man. He's like he don't care. He's just, but he's getting the job done. He's putting points on the board, and he looks really good out there. That's really the best way to sum it up.
Yeah.
What about you, Bill?
Yeah, he looks really confident. You know what I mean? He just looks like a quarterback who knows what he wants to do, and he's willing to put the ball out there and let a receiver do their job. And he's accurate enough to put it in the area for them to make a catch. And that's really all you can ask, especially for a rookie. I mean, these rookie quarterbacks, it's pretty damn impressive how they look. And the difference is that, Herbert's a bigger dude, so he can take a little bit more of a hit than Burrow. And so he looks more of that prototypical quarterback, you know what I mean? And he's got decent legs and all of that. So a young guy, he's almost Josh Allen-like in a way, but he just looks like he has more command of his passes than Josh Allen did at the same point. So it's exciting. And Brian Harr, even, like, we were talking in one of our chats, and he was bringing up the fact that he thought he kind of looks Mahomes-like and how he's playing at such an early, and this is actually his rookie year where Mahomes didn't start till his second year. So, yep. I mean, it's super impressive what he's doing. And, I mean, of course, we don't expect him to be Mahomes. He doesn't quite have that vision and, his abilities, but just how impressive he looks out on the field and confident, it's super impressive. And, I ended up with a decent amount of him because, the other two guys went so early, and you could still get Herbert and Superflex back into like 7, 8, 9, 10 range. And so it was, that's a nice little value. And, we'll see how it keeps going. But I mean, I don't know how you can like knock him for anything. Like, he's a top 5 quarterback right now in points per game.
And it just proves that getting the QB right, whether it's in the draft or in free agency, but in the case of the Bengals and the Chargers, getting it right just does so much for you. Because you know what? If guys leave, guess what? A wide receiver free agent, they don't want to go to, Gardner Minshew. They don't want to go to Sam Darnold right now. They're looking at Joe Burrow. They're looking at, Justin Herbert. The same way that, 5 years ago, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers and you're looking at Tom Brady, so it's just, it does so much for your team when you have that guy behind center locked in and ready to go. Uh, Seahawks Cards, man, Sunday night, and boy, whew, it was a game to watch. Kyler does it through in the passing game, 360 and 3 touchdowns. And he does it on the ground, 14 rushes for 67 yards and a touchdown. And then D Hop is just doing what he does every week, 10 for 103 and a touchdown. I mean, I will apologize every week for everyone that I said to maybe, pump the brakes. I never said he's not going to be good, but I said pump the brakes. He might not be all that year one. But guy, he's all that in year one in this new system. Bill, what were your takeaways here?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game. I mean, there's a lot of not good defense in there. That's a big concern for Seattle. I mean, they just let Arizona come back into that game, and they could get zero pressure on the quarterback, and that's a real big concern. And I know they just got Dunlap from Cincinnati today, so that should hopefully help them a little bit. I would hope that they'd actually add another pass rusher over the course of the next week to help them out, because that's going to be an Achilles heel for them if they can't get any pressure on the quarterbacks. I mean, it's fun to watch, but it's not a championship winning, recipe, I guess. So Lockett, I mean, wide open all of the time. I mean, it was bad defense that way. And I mean, Rush just kept pitching it to him. And I mean, that was ridiculous. And, I mean, that was pretty cool to see DK run down Budda Baker. I mean, he's fast, obviously. And it was kind of cool because the Cardinals actually had Budda mic'd up, and he was like, man, he caught my ass, it was pretty cool to hear him talk. Like, how did he catch my ass? He's talking to his teammates and stuff. And, but it was interesting because after that happened, everybody was making a big deal about it. And somebody had posted a collage of videos of Julio back when he was younger. And there was Julio running down these guys. And I mean, it was insane. Like it made this DK rundown look like nothing, because Julio was just so incredibly fast back then. And so yeah, it's just kind of cool to see these big dudes just being able to truck down the field and catch these little guys who are supposed to be quicker, so yeah, it was a fun game overall though. I mean, I would love to watch 10 of those games every week.
I hear you. And it's funny you talk about Julio. There are just guys that are genetically different from the rest of us. And it's funny, someone put a tweet up and they said, if aliens came down and said, that we have to play a game of football against them, who would your first pick be? And someone put the gif of DK just chasing down Budda Baker and taking him, and he goes, and so someone said DK might actually be the alien.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, you saw it too for years with Calvin Johnson, Julio, DK. Now there are just guys that are genetically different from the rest of us. They may not be human, but
right.
They're very entertaining watching them on the football field. All right, Monday night, we went from a really great game on Sunday night to Bears and Rams. And I literally couldn't find anything about this. So I just posed the question, is it time for Mitch to come back? Because, I mean, dude, at this point, you could put Mitch Trubisky in a Nick Foles jersey, and if you just put a visor over the helmet, I don't think you'd really be able to tell much difference. So
I don't think I heard that Nick Foles actually brought something up saying, kind of critiquing the offensive play calling and stuff like that. I mean, that's Joe Flacco, from when he was in Denver. I mean, that's the kiss of death, and maybe that's the trick. Maybe that's something the NFL does, hey, do this so we can bench you, because we're going to bench you anyways, and you get to save face and you can find a job elsewhere. Who knows what that is, but it was just really odd for him to come out and say that publicly. And, I mean, it wasn't like Trubisky was playing that poorly. like
Right.
before he got benched. He just had that bad game, and it was like they wanted Foles on the field, and I don't think they're going to change to Trubisky now, but it's a legit question to ask. You know what I mean? And like I think that they're not going to do it because they are 5-2, and he did look bad, and it might have just been a bad matchup against that they just against the Rams, and we'll see next week. But I mean the leash is definitely shorter than it was a week ago for sure.
And to any Chicago Bears fans listening to this, I'm sorry because I mean think about I know you're a Lions fan, so you have no pity.
No.
But to be a Bears fan and go, man, Nick Foles sucks. Let's get the backup out here, and then that like light bulb goes on above your head, and you go, crap, the backup is Mitch Trubisky. Is that what I really want? I don't know, but I have.
I mean, what do you want though, right? Like, I almost
Yeah.
would prefer Trubisky out there as a fan because at least there's hope for the future. Like, if the light bulb turns on, maybe there is still hope for him. Foles, I'm not sure that there's that hope. He's not a long-term answer, at least in my mind.
And unfortunately, this just shows good teams and bad teams. The Bears, yes, their record is good. So you can say what you want about that. Their record is good. But you trade up one pick to get Mitch in a draft that also had Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes. But then you compound that mistake by then trading another pick to take on all of Nick Foles' contract when you could have spent $1 or $2 million on Jameis. You could have spent $3 or $4 million on Andy Dalton. You could have spent, there were a lot of guys that ended up signing in places for just, Cam signed for $1.5 million, and it doesn't make sense to me. But hey, they're 5-2 right now, so I guess you can't be too hard on them. But that quarterback situation is a mess. So that's the news. I think we killed it. We hit all the high notes. So we're going to go to what we saw on the timeline. And this is a good one that I actually will go to this one first. So this is Rachel at Tootsie Pop 6. Which one would you bench this week? Nelson Aguilar, Jarvis Landry, or Chase Claypool? Bill, I'm going to let you go first. Which one are you benching?
I think I'm benching Claypool. Aguilar's look really good. He has a real he has a ton of air yards, I guess, and his average depth of target is pretty long. It's further than normal, and he's actually been the guy that's been consistent at all in the last few weeks. So I like Aguilar. Landry, I think, is just he's really the top option now at receiver for Cleveland. So Claypool is the one that just is going to be erratic, I think, for the next, for the rest of the season, as long as Deontay's playing. So he's who I bench.
Yeah, I went with Jarvis Landry here, which, by the way, is the low man in this poll. The whole Cleveland offense just kind of confuses me. When I think guys are supposed to be good, they're not good, and then when they're at their lowest, then they're good again, and all of that messing with my head, I think, is the reason why I picked Jarvis Landry. I mean, in theory, he should improve with OBJ being out for the rest of the season now, but they just all confuse me. I don't know what Deontay Johnson's status is going to be for this game. So if he doesn't play, I think you fire up Chase Claypool again and hope for a good game. And I'm with you on Nelson Aguilar. And Nelson Aguilar is so 2020 because Philadelphia Eagles fans, they would chop off one of their hands to have Nelson Aguilar back on their team, and that is not something that you could have said at this point last year. People were counting down the days until they could cut him. So I mean, hey, 2020 Nelson Aguilar, he goes to Vegas. Maybe he bet on black, and has just been just moving ever since. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's crazy that in 2020 you and I, Bill, are agreeing that Nelson Aguilar is probably the best option out of all of the options that were listed. So, Rachel, I hope that you hear this. I hope that you definitely play Aguilar, and then you can decide on which one of us are more convincing. The Twitter population agrees with Bill. 66% say sit his ass down. Only 11% say to sit Landry down. But as we know, Twitter is usually wrong, so don't listen to Bill and listen to me.
That's right.
Drew's got a good one here. The Bears are the best team, in quotes, in the league who are bottom 3 in scoring with no 2021 picks. Drew apparently has hacked my MFL and has seen the construction of a lot of my teams. Drew, stop that. I am the best because my record says I'm the best. It doesn't matter that I'm 7th in scoring, okay? We're going to go to this next one here. This is from Dynasty Dad at Dynasty_Dad FF. And he is a contender in a 12-team Superflex league. So here we go. We got one with options here. What package would you want the most? Tua and a second, Michael Thomas, Sutton, a mid-first and a mid-second, or Dobbins and a mid-first? Okay, this is interesting. There's a lot of stuff going around. Bill, do you want me to go first? You want to go first on this one?
Have you had time to think about it? If not, I think I might be able to do something here.
I mean, I can throw an opinion out there. I mean, it may not be good, but I can throw an opinion out there.
All right, go ahead.
I think I'm going again with the lowest option, and maybe just the way I'm feeling today. We're talking Superflex, and I understand it's 12 teams, so every team probably has at least 2 quarterbacks that they're happy with. But give me Tua. I mean, Tua was, last year he was the 102 consensus in the rookie draft. I saw him go 101 in some places, and he's starting for a Miami team that's been playing well. They have some weapons. They have Preston Williams. They have Devontae Parker. They have Myles Gaskin, who's been another 2020 name that we never expected out of nowhere. Mike Gesicki. So he's got some talented players around him, and I think if we are all correct in the way we projected him, he should be pretty damn good. So I'm going to take the quarterback in this situation in the Superflex League because I think the quarterback is going to be good. What about you, Bill?
Okay, so if I am in a 12-team Superflex and I am a contender, I'm going to go with the player that I think is going to help me win this year and start for me definitely and get me points as long as he ends up playing again. And that is Michael Thomas. I think I have to go that route. I think he is going to be the main option. He is going to get back on the field. It's just a matter of dealing with his knuckleheadedness and getting him, back on the straight and narrow. But he's a league winner, when he is on the field. And I don't think that anything changes there. Everything else is more, for me, is more a non-contender move. Tua is probably the second option in this grouping, but I think I'm just going to go with the wide receiver that ends up being, one of my top 2 options at that position.
So there you go, Dynasty Dad. And this was an interesting one since there were so many options.
Yeah, I like it.
Bill,
personally, I would want the Sutton the first and the second, and that's the lowest one. So,
Okay.
but because he's a contender, that changes my mind.
Yeah, and everything you said about Michael Thomas is true, except for the fact that he may never be on the field this year because he's been doing some crazy stuff. So
yeah,
who knows? A lot of people have made A/B comparisons, and I hope it's not going that route. But kind of, he's showing some similarities.
Some smoke. Yeah, there's some smoke. Yeah,
perfect. That's the perfect way to say it. There's some smoke. And apparently he wanted the smoke from a couple of the guys on his own team. So
right
there you go. But no, you're 100% right. If he comes back and he is in his right mind, he is a league winner. He is a guy that you have on your team and you have no worries about plugging him in every week. I just went with 2 in the super flex because God, even if he's somewhere in between Burrow and Herbert, wow, that's a guy in a super flex that if you're a contender, you probably have at least one good QB already. And if you are plugging in another top 10 guy, that could put you over the top. So, hey, that's why we love doing this, because we're going to give you some different opinions sometimes. And Dynasty Dad, I hope it helps you. I went low ball with the low ball choice. The Dobbins in the mid first won the poll, and I'm wondering if people saw contender, or if they kind of just looked through the options and said, this is the one I think is best because Dobbins was a mid first last year, and I'm getting another mid first this year. But we're talking about contenders here, and Bill, your option did come in second, and mine came in. Actually, mine wasn't last. Mine was third out of 4. So
yeah, my personal preference was last, though.
There you go. Yeah, and I think if I was a rebuild, I'm with you on that. I want Sutton that first and that second because I'm getting, really probably 2.5 first and then a second round pick as well. So, there you go. And we'll. I think we got time for one more. Yeah, we got time for one more. So this one here is from the Dynasty Trades guy at Dynasty Trader 2. And we talked about him earlier, so this is going to be a fun little way to get back to him. Who would you prefer in Dynasty? Travis Fulgham?
Oh my God.
Or Mike Evans? So, yeah, Bill.
Yeah, that's a rough one, man. That really hurts me to my core. Like, geez, oh, Pete, the fact that this is even a question is like,
it's not the fact that it's a question. It's the fact that it's a question that actually makes you think a little bit.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's just, wow. You know what I mean? Like, who do I want long term? Do I want Fulgham or do I want Mike Evans? I mean, I gotta go Mike Evans. And that's just me holding on and hoping, and that's all it is now. It's just like, let's hope for the best and hope that something clicks and, maybe he ends up on another team, but that's not a good thing either, So, I don't know. Fulgham has been doing this. It's kind of like Greg Ward did last year. It's just there was no other options. And so once these other guys start coming back, like when Goddard's back, when Ertz is back, when Rager's playing, there's going to be a little bit less just being directed right at Fulgham. And I like Fulgham. I like he looks the part. I'm willing to lose out on that value by not giving up a guy who has had 1,000 yards each year for his first 6 seasons.
So I made a joke with you earlier, Bill, that we could argue some of these questions ESPN style.
Yeah.
Let's argue this one a little bit because
it's legit. I think we can.
Looking at this question on its face, if you put no thought into it, the first thing that pops into your head is Mike Evans, and
that's probably a heart response. Like that's right. Way more heart than head. I'll say that right now.
You're betting on the name and maybe not on what the current production is.
Correct.
And we talked about this earlier. I'm on the side that I'm kind of hoping this is just an injury thing that he's trying to play through, which is the reason why he's not putting up the stats that we're used to him putting up. But you brought up a great point that this could be kind of the beginning of a Dez type situation where big boy, he plays physical, he beats you with the 50-50 ball, and once that physicality starts breaking down, there's not much else to rely on. Travis Fulgham. So I'm actually going with Travis Fulgham, and here's why. We're talking long term here. Yes, this year Alshon can come back and take some targets, and yes, Zach Ertz can come back and take some targets, but let's look at Philly Eagles 2021. Djax probably gone. Alshon probably gone. Zach Ertz probably gone. So now we're talking about Jalen Reagor, who they spent a first-round pick on, who I think will be elevated into that, no doubt about it, starting lineup. And who else? Yeah, Dallas Goedert's going to be there. He's a tight end.
Hightower.
Who? Hightower.
Isn't that his name? Their fourth-round pick from this year?
Yeah, Hightower, whatever. What has Hightower done in a game that I guess what I'm getting at is it looks like Fulgham slides into that wide receiver too. Obviously, free agency is going to happen. The draft is going to happen. But the way he's playing right now, I think that all of those weapons that are going to be leaving Philly is going to leave a big gap. And Travis Fulgham could be the man to fill that gap. And, we're looking at Tampa Bay, and we went through all of the weapons in Tampa Bay. They got AB. They got Chris Godwin. They got Scotty Miller. They got Gronk. They got Rojo and Leonard Fournette and O.J. Howard. And I'm sure, Leonard Fournette's probably not going to be there next year. Rojo may not even be there next year. O.J. Howard may not be there next year. But you got to figure probably one or two of those guys are going to stick around, plus Godwin, plus, so he could actually be getting shoved further down the depth chart with the players that will be there in 2021, as opposed to Fulgham, who I think will actually rise up the depth chart with all the guys that Philly will probably get rid of in the 2021 offseason. So it should, but Bill, you nailed it on the head earlier, man. Like, the fact that we can even debate this has just kind of shown what has happened to Mike Evans, but also what Travis Fulgham has done, because this isn't a situation where, like, we're bashing on Evans and we're talking about some guy that hasn't done it. Travis Fulgham has been in games and he's been doing it. So it will be interesting to see what it looks like in 2021, because I could be right on the nose where he gets elevated because they're getting rid of guys, but he could also end up, there were probably people saying this about Greg Ward last year, the way he ended the season.
Yep.
He was on fire as well. And then, Djax is back, Alshon is back, Zach Ertz is back, and now all of a sudden, he is kind of flashing here and there, but it's definitely not the same with, Jalen Reagor also being there and all that. So that's a good question, and
yeah,
it hurts your heart to even.
It's crazy. It hurts my head too, because it's like my brain is trained. You know what I mean? Like in this, even in fantasy football, like podcasting and Twitter and just all conversations, there's you can kind of get caught up in like the group think a little bit, you know what I mean? Where like, okay, this is the the trending idea or what the group believes you should do. And sometimes you got to step back and just go, man, I kind of fell into that a couple weeks ago. In one of my leagues, a guy offered me Mixon for DeAndre Swift. And I'm like, I want to keep DeAndre Swift. Like, I feel like, the way my team's built, the way, it's younger. If Mixon doesn't hit for the rest of the season, I'm kind of hurt, I lose that value. But I get it. Like, that's a huge value. Or, what people think, it's a huge value of me getting Mixon over Swift. But now we look at it 2 weeks later, and is it that different now between Mixon and Swift? And so do you feel that much more confident having Mixon on your roster than you do Swift at this point in time? And I would think that there's probably a lot less people that feel confident with Mixon. And so I think that that's something that we got to be careful about. And just because it's a prevailing idea at the moment, Fulgham might be the right answer. And so don't fall into the trap of just value trap all the time, because things can change so quickly in that regard. And, and it has, I just don't think that, like, you really have to think about it and see how your team is built. If you're a team that's contending, I can kind of understand sticking with Mike Evans. But if you're in a rebuild, I might go the other direction, just because, you can get more on top of Fulgham for Mike Evans. But the point being is, that's a question that you can ask to make that move. Maybe you do make that move getting Fulgham plus.
And the great thing about it is that the poll proves that out, because it's 68% for Mike Evans and 32% for Travis Fulgham. So,
but that's a third of people that would do it,
right? And that also means that if you're in that third, what is it? Fulgham and a second, Fulgham
I don't think you could pull that off.
And an ascending player, Fulgham and I'm trying to think of a guy that would actually make sense, but I think Fulgham in a second would probably make the most sense. But and this is what I mean, knowing you and knowing how you play and being in leagues with you and seeing how you construct rosters. This is what you are very good at. You're very good at not falling into the hype train. Like, you're not a guy who, after the 4 touchdown Chase Claypool week, is going out there and trading 2 firsts to get him on your team. Like, you understand you have a value for him, and one huge game isn't going to swing that value all that much. Just like one terrible game isn't going to swing that value that much. I think I'm good as that. I think I'm good at that as well. I don't think I'm as good as you, but I think I'm good. And I think that's what's important, is not going into all the ebbs and flows. Zach Reed, our friend Tacit Assassin, was on the Trade Addicts pod this past week. Eric. And he was talking about God, I can't remember how he labeled it now. Micro markets, and I think I'm getting the term wrong. But how player values like escalate week to week, and they go up and down. And 1 week, the week before Justin Herbert comes out and plays, he's worth, Bill has wall art. Oh my goodness. Is that you in that picture, Bill? Is that you in that picture, brother?
Yes, that was at a music festival, and yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, and he's talking about these player markets where, like, the week before Justin Herbert stepped out onto a field, you probably could have gotten him for a mid to late first, you know, and now, we've heard people trading Herbert for Joe Burrow straight up, you know what I mean? Or, and it's like, wow, it's like, it's crazy. And you know what? We're going to put a couple extra minutes on this one because our boy Drew brings up a great question. Who's more fickle, dynasty or redraft GMs? My answer is always dynasty GMs are more fickle because we are looking at this value for so long. I mean, if you take a guy like Joe Burrow or you take a guy like Justin Herbert, we didn't start looking at his value week one of the NFL season. We've been looking at his value, whoever Burrow or Herbert, since what, 2018, 2019. Joe Burrow's a little bit different because he didn't really jump out onto the scene until last college season. But a guy like Herbert, his value has been going up and down for going on 3 years now. So we're definitely more fickle because redraft GMs are just worried about what's going on this year.
Yep, short
they're
window.
Yeah, they're not looking at it as far out as dynasty GMs do, and they haven't been looking at it for as long as dynasty GMs. So we have this much wider window that we go up and down and up and down because I love Herbert and I think he's great, but he's probably going to end up having a bad week one of these weeks, and then all of a sudden we're going to hear Justin, it was all just, he got streaky for 4 games and now he sucks. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of what we're doing with Josh Allen right now. Josh Allen, the first month of the season was MVP. Sorry, Drew, the first guy that came to my mind, but Josh Allen MVP. And now we're looking at like Josh Allen, kind of what he's always been, and it's like, same thing with Daniel Jones, man. Daniel Jones, we were like, he's no good. Then he kind of blew up for a few games. In the offseason, maybe he's the guy we want to grab. Now Daniel Jones sucks and we're up and down. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely dynasty GMs that are much more fickle than our redraft compatriots. But all right, Bill, one thing I want to do, and we don't do this all the time, but I saw a great article on Twitter, and I want to give a shout out. This is from Boyd Killingworth at Dynasty Boyd. He tags me in a lot of stuff. I think he might tag you too, Bill. But he had a great tweet. Finding it difficult to separate Burrow and Herbert in your rankings. Same. I have attempted to in my latest article for at Dynasty FB Digest, and we're going to put the link in our show notes so that if you want to take a read on that, you can. I read it. It was a really good article. A lot of comparison, a lot of like who's better, who's not. I'm not going to spoil it because then you won't go read it, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to push people to these articles and things like this because, I mean, sometimes an article just gives you that little morsel of information that ends up getting you a guy or ends up helping you trade away a guy that could help win you a championship. So that's what we're going to do. But on that note, Bill, I think it's time for us to get the hell out of here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We had Drew in the chat. Larry Monkey came in at the end to do his thing. Other people were in and out. We appreciate you guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to hit subscribe and the bell. It's the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network if you're searching for it. So not only do you get us, but you get all kinds of other cool stuff, which is always a great thing to do. If you're listening to us on podcasts, we appreciate it. An hour and almost 20 minutes. You could be doing anything else with your life, and you're choosing to listen to Bill and I do our thing. So we do really appreciate it. Remember, podcast people, subscribe if you're not already. Tell other people to subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your family. I always tell you, take grandma's phone and just do it. She won't know the difference. And rate and review, because the rate and reviews not only help us make the show better, but it also helps other people to see us. So, Bill, on this eve of Halloween, we're out of here, man.